Welcome to another edition of Capital Area Chats. I'm your host, Paul Brogan, and we're about everything in the greater Concord region, the people, places, the things that make this an extraordinary place to live, to work, and to play. Today's guest is someone that has not been on the show before, and I'm really excited to talk with her today. And I think you'll come away feeling you want to read some of the books that she has written. She's an extraordinarily talented writer. She's also a historian, has a great personality. And by the way, before I forget, next Thursday, August the 11th, she will be at Gibson's bookstore in Concord, New Hampshire at 6:30 talking about one of her latest books. This one will be New Hampshire War Monuments, and it's the stories behind the stones. She has written a fascinating history, I think, and her daughter has contributed some brilliant photography to it, Sheila Bailey. But her name is Catherine Bailey, and I'd like to welcome you to Capital Area Chats. A pleasure to have you here.
You know, I am thrilled to be here. I'm an old Concord girl. I grew up on the Heights.
Yes.
Went to Dame School, went to Rundlet, took a couple of years off and went to a Catholic girls' boarding school. We won't talk about that.
Okay.
And
we'll save that for another show.
yeah. There are stories to be
Yes,
told.
there are, of course.
And then finished up at Brady.
Wow. Great. That's wonderful. That really is. That's quite a story. Did you find that when you did end up at Brady, were you better prepared for the regimentation had you not gone to the boarding school? Did you find?
Brady was like a vacation after the boarding school.
Good. Yes, it was. I have wonderful memories of the place and go back there whenever I can because it just feels, I can walk down the corridor, the tile's the same, the smell is the same. I think they wash the floors with holy water because that distinctive smell from 50-something years ago is still there. But we're here to talk about your writing. And first, may I ask, when did you first decide that you wanted to write? Were you an inveterate writer when you were in school?
Shortly after I learned to read. And I was 4 when I learned to read. I learned to read from the Sunday comics. And I read these books called the Betsy Tacy books by Maud Hart Lovelace. The girl in Betsy Tacy that wanted to be a writer, and I figured if she could do it, I could do it too. I always liked telling stories, but I didn't publish my first book until I was 69.
Wow.
That's a long apprenticeship.
That is. But you were involved with
I always
newspapers and the media, right?
Oh, yes. I was a print journalist, still am on occasion, but I covered 13 New Hampshire towns over 30 years, 2 of them twice, Raymond and Epping. I went back for seconds for 2 different papers. So I cut my teeth in journalism. And then I started publishing fiction when I was 69 and semi-retired. And I never thought I'd be doing this. Because nonfiction to me was always a way to pay the bills.
Yes, exactly.
And fiction was fun. But I started doing these mostly because I wanted a project my daughter and I could work on together.
Yes.
And I found out that I really love nonfiction. Because these stories are as good as the ones I make up.
It is. There are so many fascinating things, which I found when I wrote the Concord Theater book. It was the same way.
I love that book.
It was, you feel at a certain point, I think, in your life that almost like a calling or a vocation that you need to tell these stories, and certainly with the War Monuments stories, that is something that's never been done before. So you have contributed a piece of history that maybe people could have gotten along not knowing it, but once you read it and find out all of this, it changes your entire opinion or viewpoint of when you're looking at something. You no longer just walk by it and say, oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah, I was determined that these stories be preserved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some of them are just beautiful, like the Buddy Monument in Jaffrey,
Mm-hmm.
which tells 3 love stories.
Yes.
The Buddy Monument in Jaffrey was created by a semi-famous Danish sculptor, Viggo Brandt Eriksson.
Mm-hmm.
And Viggo Brandt Eriksson fell in love with a wealthy American woman, Dorothy Caldwell, when she was traveling in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They got married. She died in childbirth, so did their child.
Mm-hmm.
And Viggo Brandt Eriksson was heartbroken. But he remembered that Dorothy had always said, oh, I spent summers in this little New Hampshire town called Jaffrey when I was growing up. And that stuck in Viggo's mind, so he determined that he was going to bury Dorothy and their daughter in Jaffrey. So he sailed across the ocean, settled in Jaffrey, buried Dorothy and the child. And then he wanted to do something for Jaffrey because Dorothy had loved it so much.
Yes.
So he created the Buddy Monument. So the Buddy Monument is a love story on 3 levels. It's Viggo and Dorothy. It's the doughboy's love for his wounded comrade, carrying him off the field.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the love of country and patriotism that all young American men and some women took on when they went over to fight in World War I. So it's a powerful story.
And how many monuments do you cover in the book?
Ooh, I don't quantify it,
Okay.
but
Mm-hmm.
each chapter
Yes.
is, you have a chapter with a narrative,
Yes.
and that's where I really get into the stories.
Mhm.
And then we have listings of
Oh.
things that we didn't get into
Yes.
that much, but
Mm-hmm.
need mention.
Yes. Wow.
And I stopped counting a long time ago.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to reading it, and I wanted to wait to buy my copy at your book event next week, so you can be
Oh,
certain.
I sent you a free one. You better check
Yes.
your email.
Yes. No, I do have it, but I didn't want to read it till I actually had the book in hand.
Yeah, I like
And
books in
me
hand,
too. There's something about that. And so that's what I will be doing on Friday, the 12th of August, after
Okay.
buying it at the event, because.
Okay, well, I'll be careful not to call you.
Okay. But I mean, it's everything that I have read, because we're friends, so people know, on Facebook. And I love your postings, and I love your newsletters. And I recommend people friend you on Facebook, so they can also sign up and get your newsletters and find out what's going on.
I have fun doing them.
Yes, I mean, I think they're spirited, they're fun, they're unexpected, they're fascinating, and they're you. And if nobody's ever met you, they make people want to meet you or have that
You're so
opportunity,
good.
because you capture your character so beautifully in those. So, I mean, I really think it's, just knowing you. The first time we met at that book event in April, I felt already as though I'd known you for years and years.
Well, it's the Concord thing.
It is, and your postings on
You can
Concord
take the
Here and
boy out
Now.
of Concord, you can take the girl out of Concord, but you can't take Concord out of the boy or the girl.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean,
Let's see what else we have here. Oh, the Harrison Thing Monument. I
Okay.
love that. That's in Pittsfield.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Just right over there.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I never.
And Harrison Thing was a graduate of Pittsfield High School.
Mm-hmm.
He was in ROTC at UNH. A lot of numbers there, a lot of words. And then he enlisted in the Second World War
Mm-hmm.
and was a flying ace in Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific.
Wow.
And he was a colonel by the time he was 26.
Mm-hmm.
This boy's a keeper.
Wow.
And then he hadn't had enough, so he enlisted for Korea.
Uh-huh.
And he is one of the few, I think there's like 5 of them, pilots that are certified as ace pilots in both propeller planes and jets, because he flew both. And then after that, he helped establish the New Hampshire National Guard. He was the first president of Daniel Webster College. He was advisor to the Pentagon.
Wow.
The only thing he failed at was a run for Senate. But he lived to a good old age in Pittsfield. And this is amazing because you're going down this dusty back road in Pittsfield, filled, you know, auto repair shops, little frame houses. And you come upon this. And it's stunning. It looks like something you'd see on the National Mall or at Gettysburg.
Yes, very true. And I know his name because I remember in the Concord Monitor he would be written about for doing different things, but I didn't know any of the backstory because it would just say what he was currently doing or something else.
Paul, before I started the book, I didn't know the backstory either.
How wonderful. Right in Pittsfield. I mean, that's amazing.
And this book is different from my Exeter book because my Exeter book was more of a paint-by-numbering thing. We were commissioned to find old photos and then find as close as we could come of the same shot with what was there today. And then I got to write a caption and we were done. So the biggest challenge with that book was finding the pictures that matched. But War Monuments has a complete narrative. I take you from the French and Indian War through Iraq and Afghanistan. And we discuss how each war was memorialized, how each war was depicted. For example, the World War I monument in Victory Park in Manchester has 3 different allegorical figures. Columbia, some kind of avenging angel, and the angel of death. It's got a soldier, it's got a sailor, it's got a globe with eagles hanging off of it. It's like a wedding cake.
I mean, I probably passed it hundreds of times in my life, but never really stopped to look or to even inquire as to what is this about here in Manchester.
You go to Viet freaking Nam. And this is what they got, if they got anything at all. And I noticed how the complexion and the composition and the ambiance of the memorials changed over the years. From florid and allegorical to stark and bare. Because after World War II, there was no way we could romanticize war.
No. Very true, very true.
And even the GIs who were over there didn't know the full extent of Hitler's depravity, and when they found out, it changed them. They were the greatest generation, but they were a changed generation.
Exactly, yes.
So that's what I follow through with on here. We talk about how the memorials have changed, and we talk about how the newer crop of heroes, Iraq, Afghanistan, they're being memorialized with things that people would actually like and use. Like Doug DeCenzo of Plymouth. Where is my Doug? Okay, there's my Doug. Doug DeCenzo of Plymouth does have a monument. They named a bridge after him. But they also have a camp fund that his relatives started to send underprivileged kids to camp. And they fund it with a golf tournament. How fun is that? Danny Healy of Exeter, he was one of the people that died in the helicopter crash in Afghanistan, and 4 of his men were killed by the Taliban. And Danny is memorialized. they named the swimming pool after him,
Mm-hmm.
the community pool.
Mm-hmm.
And his mother does a road race and funds various charities through the proceeds.
Yes.
This is the way we remember
Today.
people now.
Yes.
It's more hands-on. It's
Right.
more. They do get a stone. I mean, Danny got a stone.
Yes.
Doug got a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more hands-on, and it's more what the living
Yes.
would like, and what these boys would have actually used if they'd
Mm-hmm.
lived.
True. Very true. Very true. Now, is it wonderful working with your daughter on these projects?
It really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of fun. We've had a lot of adventures,
Mm-hmm.
such as batting around Plainfield and Cornish looking
Oh.
for an obscure cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, if you ever go to Cornish, don't ask them about J.D. Salinger.
Oh,
They
okay.
don't like that.
Oh, okay. I won't.
Even though
Okay.
he's
Even
dead.
though he's gone, it's still a sore subject.
Yeah, don't
or-
ask me how I know.
Okay. Did you find what you were looking for? there?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And that's one of the more exciting stories. Well, it's all exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Derek Oxford.
Yes.
And Derek Oxford was an enslaved man
Mm-hmm.
living in the North Country. He was enslaved by William Gallup of Hartland, Vermont. And William Gallup allowed Derek to enlist in the Revolutionary War.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Probably William Gallup pocketed some money for it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Send your slaves so you don't have to go.
Right.
But Derek fought in the war, and then he came home, and he set up residence in Plainfield.
Mm-hmm.
We're assuming he was freed by then because we don't hear of anybody else
Right.
enslaving him. But when Derek died, they just put a rock on top of where his body was. Just a plain rock,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody obsessed about it until 200 years later. Jane Stevenson, the president of the Plainfield Historical Society, found out about it, and she said, well, this isn't right. So she harangued the Veterans Administration
Mm-hmm.
to get Derek a proper stone. And that was the one we were trying to find when we were batting around
Yes.
Plainfield and
Right.
Cornish.
Mm-hmm.
We used up a lot of gas.
I'm sure. But when you are successful in finding what you're seeking, there's that sense of satisfaction because it is a story you can now share and enlighten. Like I had no idea, and
It's like putting a puzzle together.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Jane wasn't done yet.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a genealogist, so she researched William Gallup's family and got them to come to the dedication of the stone.
Oh.
And she researched what was left of Derek's family,
Mm-hmm.
who were all in Connecticut, and she got them to come to the dedication of the stone. So there was healing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how wonderful! I love. So that story is in your book.
Yeah, diversity.
Okay. Wonderful. Oh, I think it's great. Wonderful. And of course, I will just in passing mention you are currently working on a book about Concord. Is it similar to your Exeter book or?
Not at all.
Okay.
It's interesting, Paul, because the more I do these books, the more
Yes.
personal they become.
Uh-huh.
Exeter was not personal at all,
Mhm.
except that I love the town.
Yes, and it is. It's beautiful.
War Monuments was more personal
Mm-hmm.
because I've lived in New Hampshire most of my life, and it's a history of New Hampshire at war.
It is. Yes.
And the Concord book is going to be the most personal of all. I'm calling it The Long Summer, Concord, New Hampshire in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to people like you about what it was like growing up in that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were really the last generation before everything hit the fan.
Yes. Very true. Very true. It was a safe community. You felt safe. You felt loved. You felt
Yeah,
connected.
and we didn't have to deal with a war, and we didn't have
No.
to deal with a depression.
Mm-hmm.
It really was the last summer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what an inspiring title for that. That's truly great. I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I'm
for
getting
you.
some really good stories.
Stories from people.
Fortunately, the statute of limitations has expired.
Mm-hmm. Well, I follow, because I follow you on sometimes Concord Here and Now and everything, and I see the enthusiasm building from people as it moves along, and in their willingness to share stories. You know, initially, I'm sure you had some people, well, do I really want to, and that kind of thing, but I see that.
Well, a lot of people didn't think their experiences or their reminiscences were that important, but that's kind of the point.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it was the long summer.
It was. Oh, they seemed to stretch on forever until the Peanut Carnival was sort of the wind down right before Labor Day. But you had, I mean, those 10 or 11 weeks felt like 10 months or a year or something.
Well, I feel like the whole 50s and 60s was like a long summer.
It was, yes.
Because we really weren't a city, Paul. We were a small town on steroids.
Exactly. Perfect definition.
Yeah.
I mean, we had what we needed and owned by people we knew, either through church or family friends or, you know, something else. And we were, for the most part, very happy with that. I mean, White's Park and Rollins and the South End.
And the Concord Theater and the Capitol Theater.
Yes.
And if we got bored, we took the bus to Manchester and rode the escalator.
Right, exactly.
We were such rubes.
I thought that was the most exciting, to step on that. I couldn't afford anything in Parasols, and they had nothing for me to buy for myself. But nobody ever said, hey, kid, get out of here. They knew that, oh, he wants to get on the escalator and ride up and then come back down, and so what? What's the harm? It's cheaper than going over to Benson's Wild Animal Farm or you know, one of the other places that were around there. But Pine Island Park too was down there. But it was.
We were such dorks.
But in the nicest, most lovable way. Yes, yes. I mean,
so my book kind of, it goes up to the bicentennial.
Okay.
Which was really the last time we were all dorks together.
Yes.
And then I get into Vietnam and the Kennedy assassination and the loss of innocence, basically.
And that is what happened. I mean, it changed. That bicentennial there in 1965, everyone participated. The men grew the beards and the mustaches, and everybody wore the clothes, and the parade. They say something like 20,000 people lined Main Street for the parade, and it was just, there was a participation across the board, and we felt as one, very much so, and it did after that. You're right. It changed. I mean, our lives and our priorities and
some
what we
of it was good and some of it wasn't. But the point is, we were out of the chute, whether we wanted to be or not.
It was right after that Howdy Beef Burger came to town and gave people a place to turn around when they raced down Main Street, turned around in Howdy Beef Burger and raced back up.
We were such dorks. I mean, that is dorkitude at the max.
Yes.
Good dorking.
Yes. I would stand in the doorway of the theater at night while the second show was running, waiting for it to get out, and I would see cars go by, and I would look at my watch to see how long it took them to be coming the other way, knowing, okay, they went down only to Howdy Beef Burger, turned around, and they've come back, and it was like 2.5 minutes it took to get down there, turn around, and come back. And that's what I was doing. But I loved, you know, I was happy doing it.
Yeah.
And it was, you know.
We were safe.
Yes, absolutely. Walking home from the theater 11 o'clock at night, I never felt unsafe. And my parents weren't concerned, oh my God, Paul's out walking the streets of Concord and everything. But I do want to mention another title that is new for you also, Redemption's Hope.
Yes.
is another new title. It's an Oregon Trail historical romance. When you write something like that, do you do extreme research? Of course, you have to really understand that time period.
Not so much anymore
Okay.
because I've done Oregon Trail for 5 books.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
I've
I've got it
noticed
by
some of the
now,
other
but,
titles. Yes.
When I started it, I did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it more fun to write something like that, or is it a totally different you that sits down to type that than the person who sits down to do the War Monuments or the Exeter book? Or
Not anymore
mm-hmm.
because my heart is in this too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's important. It is, as a writer. I mean, I try to tell people, what it feels like or what you channel or something when you sit down. And it's very hard to really explain it. It's just something that's almost an instinct that's just there. And like you, I mean, I didn't write my first book till I was past 50. And it was, it felt like the right time. I knew it was the right time. Before that, it wouldn't have come from in here. It would have been forced or something to do, I think.
Yeah, when you've got enough inside you to do what you need to do.
You do, yes. And then it's right, and you look forward to sitting there, and you look forward to sharing, and this I am so excited about getting next week. And I did read just a little bit about Senator Maggie Hassan, by the way, did do the foreword, and I think that's wonderful that you had someone such as her to do this.
Well,
because
I knew her years and years ago when she was a state senator, and I was a reporter for the Exeter newsletter.
Oh,
So
okay.
I kind of played on that.
Yes, yes. But
she got what I was trying to do.
exactly. And isn't that so wonderful when somebody understands your reasoning behind something?
Paul, I got to say that I learned a lot about monuments, and I learned a lot about New Hampshire because this state is very remembrance-minded.
Yes.
And we take care of our own.
Yes, very much so.
I don't know if you got as far as Vietnam in there. Probably not. But,
no.
Franklin has a memorial on its town hall to a young man named Jed Barker. And Jed Barker had not lived in the town since he was 6. He moved to Paramus, New Jersey. He died in Vietnam. He threw himself on top of a grenade to save his buddies. And Franklin still memorialized him. You got to love it. New Hampshire towns love long and hard.
We do, yes, yes. They don't forget. They really don't. And there is an unconditional love and bond that connects people, which is...
we take care of our own.
We do. And that is one of the really blessed and wonderful things that speaks to people in New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah, I'm never leaving again.
No, good. Okay.
We lived in the Midwest for a while. This is it.
It felt right coming back, didn't it?
Well, I get these people, and they get me.
Yes, exactly. And this New Hampshire War Monuments, I can't stress enough. And I'm going to read, as I said, the rest of it once I actually have the book in hand after next Thursday night. But on Thursday, August 11th, at wonderful Gibson's bookstore, which is an author's best friend, Kathleen is going to be signing copies of the book, and you're going to be talking and answering questions.
I will be.
And it will be a really wonderful evening. I know it'll be. I'm really excited about going, and I don't go out that often, so this is a big deal for me to. But I think we need to support our local area authors too, and I think that that's so important because I always, and I've said this before, people go in and buy the new Grisham book or the new Danielle Steele book or something like that, but they often walk past local authors. They don't understand, and this isn't everybody, but there are people who don't understand. Stop and look. You will find titles and subjects that are mesmerizing if you give it a chance and don't just say, oh, it's just some local person, writing a book. Because an author, whether they're a local author or an international author, writes it because something inside them tells them they need to, and there's a story to be told, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, historical, and it's worth taking the time to explore those avenues and to get a handle on what people are doing, because it helps you to better understand your state, and you understand the level and the quality of the people that are living here. It's much more than just they're just locals, that people tend to dismiss. And that's why when I get a chance to talk to someone who writes, I just love finding out why they do it, and everything else. Now, the book on Concord that you're working on presently, will that be out next year, probably in 2023?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I've reached a point where I'm kind of waiting to take it to the next level. So we'll see. I've reached a point where I can't do anything else by myself, and I have to get some research done, heavy research, and call in some markers for historic photos. But we shall see.
Absolutely. And now, do you think further down the road about what you'll do after that? Do you sort of just let the chips fall where they may? And
oh, no, Sheila and I are tossing ideas around.
are you? Wonderful, wonderful. And that's good to have each other to do that, because nobody better understands sort of a writer than a family member who's worked with them.
Oh, yeah, and my other daughter is my tech support. Oh. So it's
great.
A family affair.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh, yeah, I can't do anything tech.
No, I'm still in the days of carbon paper at times. I think to myself, wasn't that easy? And, got all over your fingers, but it was still.
I print everything out so I can highlight it. And it's awful.
But no, but when the end result, though, satisfies you. Now, this book, did you go back and do a lot of editing on it? Or did you, sort of feel, okay, this is...
I always edit.
Yes,
Yeah, I edited the narrative and edited it again and edited it again. And just made sure it was the way I wanted it to be.
So you're completely happy with...
Well, you're never completely happy with this kind of thing. And I'll be out on a drive with my husband, and we'll see a war monument, and I'll say, oh no, I didn't have that one in the book. I've got to get it in the book. And he'll say, Kathy, your book is done.
Yes, yes.
Or with the Redemption's Hope and the other novels, I'll be driving along and I'll think, now I could have phrased that better. It's too late now.
It is, yes. But
at some point, you have to let it go.
you do have to, yes. You have to know that this is the time. Yes, I'm the same way with the Concord Theater book. I'll suddenly wake up at 3 in the morning and remember an incident with Teresa at the theater, some wonderful story.
I love Teresa.
And I said, oh my God, and I'll think to myself, why didn't I include that? Why isn't that in the book? And of course, it's long.
Well, that's why we have Concord Then and Now.
We do, because we can continually share.
Continue the conversation.
With a receptive audience and get their feedback and their comments and remarks. And it's a wonderful site for anyone who doesn't know. It's called Concord Here Now. It's on Facebook. And people like Kathleen contribute regularly, as do many other people who have a plethora of pictures and stories. And
well, my father was a photographer. He had a studio on the Heights.
Oh.
And he worked in photography for 30 to 50 years.
Wow.
and I inherited the negatives,
Uh-huh.
including a lot of good
Wonderful.
50s and 60s stuff.
Oh, how great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a treasure. That is something
Yeah, for the
so...
Concord book, I've hardly had to ask anybody for a vintage photo.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There's a few things that he didn't have that I'm going to be going around begging for, but
mm-hmm.
mostly it's his.
That's wonderful. Oh, that is wonderful. And he would be probably bursting with pride at what you're doing.
He would be over the moon.
And that you are going to be using those pictures for new generations to enjoy them and to discover and to appreciate that little dorky place we grew up in, but loved. And I'm sure everybody growing up in that time period had similar stories to tell about their own town, but it just seems like Concords are so colorful.
Well, Paul, see, we're an archetype.
Yes, we are.
We are an archetype
are.
of what was going on all over the country.
We are, very much so. We have run out of time.
Wow.
Of course, I will be having you back when the Concord book comes out, and I will be at Gibson's on August 11th at 6:30 p.m.
I will see you then.
With a big smile and anticipation for seeing you again and hearing all about this book. But I urge you all, check out Kathleen Bailey. She has all kinds of titles and books and is a real joy and treasure. And you can find her on Concord Here and Now, telling more wonderful stories. So it has been a pleasure and an honor to have you here for the first.
This has been delightful.
And I know there'll be other times you'll be on. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. I want to thank Matt behind the camera for all of his efforts on my behalf. I want to thank all of you who tune in and who watch. I want to thank Concord TV. And on behalf of all of us here, thanks very much. We'll see you the next time.